Good day everyone, I am Krisa Laron from Group 3. So today, we are going to report about the Department of Social Welfare and Development Convergence Strategies, which is the 4Ps, Kalahi Seeds, and SLP. But before that, the learning outcomes of this discussion is to discuss to you the Dswd convergence and its function, the rules of social worker in Dswd convergence strategies, and lastly, to determine the purpose of 4Ps, Kalahi seeds, and SLP. And here are the 4 questions that the answer can be found throughout our whole discussion. First, what are the DSWD convergence strategies? What is 4Ps, Kalahi seeds, and SLP? Third, what are the objectives of the program created by DSWD? And lastly, when did this program started? So as a future social worker, it is important to us to learn and understand the DSWD convergence strategies, which are all aimed at improving the level of well-being of poor household in our country, which is the Philippines. And in our first discussion, I will give the floor to Steven and Charles to discuss to you the Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino program or 4Ps created by DSWD.
Good morning, guys. My name is Charles Bradley M. Galocino, and our topic for today is all about 4Ps program. Ang Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino Program o 4Ps ay isang hakbang ng pambansang pamahalaan para sa pagpabuti ng kalagayang pantao ng ating kababayan. At nagbibigay rin ito ng kondisyonal na tulong pinansyal para sa pinakamahihirap na Pilipino upang pabutihin ang kalusugan, nutrisyon at edukasyon ng mga bata na may edad na 0 hanggang 18 taong gulang. And the government implement this program to promote human capital among families, especially children, to secure their future and also to break the cycle of poverty. The beneficiary of this program includes street families, indigenous families, or families that displaced by natural or man-made disaster, also the person with disability, and many more. But for peace beneficiaries cannot stay in program forever because the law only allows them to be in the program for 7 years.
So, how to avail for peace? First, must be a resident in one of the poorest municipalities based on the 2003 SAA or the Small Area Estimate of the National Statistical Coordination. The second, household economic status must not be above the provincial poverty level. And the third, those that have 0 to 18 years old. Now, let's move on to the other information about the Purpose Program. Purpose is a poverty reduction strategy that provides grants to extremely poor households to improve their health, nutrition, and education, particularly of children aged 0 to 14 years old. Purpose has dual objectives: the social assistance and the social development. A social assistance is to provide cash assistance to the poor to alleviate their needs, short-term poverty alleviation. And the social development is to break the intergenerational cycle of the poverty through investment in human capital, in nutrition, health, and education. So, what is the role of the social work in the Purpose Program? Municipal social workers directly have a relevant role in reducing social exclusion. These are the people who facilitate co-participation of our clients in improving own living quality in the longer term by offering social services and assistance most appropriate to clients' needs and resources. Their duties are to help people in need in the communities, helping children to assist and provide psychological and physical needs, and also their duties are to protect children and families from harmful people. A social worker in the Philippines is very important. They are the ones who assist the needs of the Filipino people and help Filipino to the difficult problems that they cannot solve with themselves. They are the most concerned to the poor people and the health of those people who really have no capability to buy medicine. They also act as a mediator, a good provider, a good counselor, and give services to those Filipino who are in need.
Poverty remains a critical national issue. The children who inherit the plight of their parents are not equipped to change it. How do we pave the way? The Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino program, piloted in 2007, is our intervention to help poor families break free from the cycle. It is integral to our social protection system and designed to be passed on from one administration to the next. In 2019, 4Ps was institutionalized, making it into law under Republic Act 11310. The Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino Program Act, 4Ps Act, becomes the National Poverty Reduction Strategy. We call it a Human Capital Investment Program. The government provides cash grants to poor households aiming to improve their health, nutrition, and education. Let's take a look at how it works. To make sure that the help goes only to those who need it most, 4Ps employs a standardized targeting system which automatically considers farmers, fisherfolk, the homeless, indigenous peoples, and those in geographically isolated and otherwise disadvantaged areas. To be eligible for the cash grants, those in the poor and near poor households must be 0 to 18 years old, pregnant at the time of registration, and willing to comply with the conditions. How much does each household receive? In each household, the children are covered by an education grant, with every monitored child in elementary school receiving 300 pesos a month, in junior high at 500 pesos a month, and in senior high from 500 pesos before institutionalization to 700 pesos a month. A health grant from 500 pesos before institutionalization to 750 pesos a month. Additional benefits are provided to the beneficiaries as mandated by other laws. Through the General Appropriations Act, a rice subsidy of 600 pesos a month, and through the unconditional cash transfer, a tax subsidy under the train law, which amounts to 300 pesos a month. All beneficiaries are now automatically covered by PhilHealth and given priority in availment of the modalities and interventions under the Dswd Sustainable Livelihood Program or similar programs. The period over which the grants are provided is up to 7 years. During this period, the 4Ps Act employs a case management approach, with the city or municipal links working directly with the families to better their well-being. Only when a household is registered, active, and compliant with the program's conditions are its members entitled to the grants. What are these conditions? They concern the children from before they're born to their 18th year. Children 3 to 18 must be enrolled in school, maintaining a class attendance of at least 85% every month. Children up to 5 years old must receive vaccination and health checkups regularly. Children up to 14 must be dewormed twice a year, and at least one responsible person from each household must attend family development sessions. A household that fails to comply with the conditions will be warned. Non-compliance following multiple warnings will result in termination of the grants and removal from the program. How do the household beneficiaries access the grants? To provide them with direct and secure access to the cash, the Dswd works with accredited government depository banks or contracts the services of rural banks, thrift banks, cooperative banks, and institutions engaged in money remittances duly accredited by Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. To make sure that the grants continue to positively impact the health, nutrition, and education of the beneficiaries, how should the 4Ps Act be implemented? The Philippine Institute for Development Studies evaluates every 3 years the veracity of the beneficiary list and tracks the effectiveness of the program. In addition, the implementation of 4Ps is kept in check by 3 major systems. The Beneficiary Update System validates, reports, and records the status of every member of the household beneficiaries. It monitors and adjusts the amounts of cash grants that each household is to receive. The Compliance Verification System checks the household beneficiaries' compliance with the program's conditions. And the Grievance Redress System records and resolves grievances effectively and efficiently. The National and Regional Advisory Councils recommend measures and policies and secure the necessary funding to ensure that the commitments of 4Ps are delivered responsibly. The NAC includes representatives from multiple national and regional agencies. Representatives from accredited non-government organizations involved with social welfare service programs are also included. And lastly, the 4Ps Oversight Committee sets the framework in reviewing the implementation of the Act, identifying inherent weaknesses in the law, and recommending remedial legislation or executive measures. While the Dswd is taking the lead, 4Ps is a national government program. Its success calls for a whole-of-government approach, with all of us responsible for every step. Whatever the intervention, the outcome we are working to achieve remains the same. The well-being of poor families improved, and the rights of the vulnerable promoted and protected. A brighter future for family, community, and country, from the social worker in the field to the decision makers in the national administration and to the household beneficiaries. We are in charge. Together, let us keep building this bridge.
At this point, we are going to discuss the SLP or the Sustainable Livelihood Program. The Sustainable Livelihood Program has its objectives: capability building programs for poor, vulnerable, and marginalized households and communities to improve their socioeconomic conditions through accessing and acquiring necessary assets to engage in and maintain thriving livelihoods and economic stability. By creating synergies between transfers and productive inclusion intervention, the long-term goal of the SLP is to achieve socioeconomic well-being of participants through their engagement in self and wage employment. The Sustainable Livelihood Program has its target. The target participants are poor households, primarily the beneficiaries of Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino, which accounts for about 80% of the participants. Other beneficiaries are poor families identified with the Listahan National Household Targeting Registry. The coverage and budget. The program is implemented nationally, existing in all provinces where the 4Ps cash transfer program is operational. It has supported 1.3 billion households since it was initiated. It is considered one of the most successful programs in Asia. As part of the overall social protection budget, allocations of the SLP increased from 1.7 million US dollar in 2011 to 182 million US dollar in 2017. Correspondingly, the number of families served by the SLP increased from 46,000 families in 2011 to 166,000 families in 2017. The impact of SLP. By linking social protection with sustainable employment opportunities, it created employment for over 1 million beneficiaries of the 4-piece cash transfer scheme from 2011 to 2015. The SLP program provides two tracks of support. First is the employment facilitation. The employment facilitation connects participants to employment opportunities and appropriate training through the public and private partnership. Eligibility is 18 years of age or more. Individuals receive allocated funding for skills training. Participants are trained at private technical vocational institution or through the government's Technical Education and Skills Development Authority or the Dswd.
So, in continuation, micro gives support to micro enterprises to become organizationally and economically sustainable. Participants have access to funds and training to set up their own micro enterprise. Eligibility is 16 years of age or more. So, if you are 16 years old and a participant of Sustainable Livelihood Program, 16 years old or more, pwede mo maka-access sa funds and training para maset ninyo yung kaugalingong micro-enterprise. Household receive support for up to 2 years after receiving inputs, with Project Development Officer providing technical assistance where needed. During this period, the productive project and assisted to become self-reliant, and they can seek support from other programs and services of Sustainable Livelihood Program. So there are 4 modalities of Sustainable Livelihood Program, which is the Skills Training Fund, Seed Capital Fund, Cash of the Building Livelihood Assets, and lastly, the Employment Assistance Fund. So first, let's discuss the first modality of Sustainable Livelihood Program, which is the Skills Training Fund. So the benefits of Skills Training Fund is technical vocational skills training fee, basic living allowance, training supplies and materials, equipment, and materials needed for employment assessment fees. So the Skills Training Fund track is the micro development and the employment facilitation. Second modality of Sustainable Livelihood Program is the Seed Capital Fund, and the benefit of this modality is working capital for small tools, raw materials, start-up expenses, permits to operate, large and long-lived tangible assets required, start or expand a micro-enterprises, and the track of this modality is the micro-development. Third is the cash of building livelihood assets, where the benefit is employment for 11 days with possibility of extension to a maximum of 3 months, and the track of these modalities is the micro-development. And last modalities is the Employment Assistance Funds, where the benefit is acquisition for employment requirements such as legal documents and licenses, mail and transportation, allowance within the first 15 days of guaranteed employment, and the track of these modalities is the employment facilitation. And that's the 4 Sustainable Livelihood Program modalities. Next is the performance and opportunities. The World Bank policy note the Philippine Sustainable Livelihood Program providing and expanding access to employment and livelihood opportunities in 2018. Explore the design and core processes of the Sustainable Livelihood Program and reflects on opportunities for improvements to maximize its impact. The following key findings are highlighted in the publication and relate to the performance of each track and opportunities for improvement. Let's talk about the first track of Sustainable Livelihood Program, which is the Employment Facilitation Task. Different models have arisen for the EF track. The best EF track models are those whose partnership were developed with employment-directed training institution. Participants' qualities are key to the success or failure of EF effort. Many participants did not reach the maximum educational attainment or age limit set by the employers. The uptake of the EF track increased from 2% in 2014 to 14% in 2015, but it remains relatively low, especially for the Pantawid families. Retention in the track has been low for participants assigned by their parents. Employment facilitation is a vital part of the EF track. Effective support from job intermediation services providers is essential to employment facilitation success. The following key findings are highlighted in the publication and relate to the performance of micro-enterprises development track and opportunities for improvements of sustainable livelihood program. Project development officers apply different rules in different regions to determine the loan provided to families. Formation and performance of Sustainable Livelihood Programs Association are a challenge beneficiaries group into SLPs, bookended and requested individual project. Effective utilization of funds depends on the level of vulnerability of the household. More vulnerable families often use the funds for household consumptions and livelihood activities, while less vulnerability families engage in small-scale enterprises, however, not as a primary source of income. When comparing to their private counterparts, microcredit services delivery by government was found to be more expensive than microfinance institutions. So the recommendation, a way forward for the Sustainable Livelihood Program, is proposed based on the previous evaluation, international experiences, and the review of the current field operations manual. The key recommendation highlighted in the World Bank policy note are divided into two groups: business process recommendation and program design recommendations. Business processes increase commitment to the participants by providing more focused counseling and information, setting expectation for participants during the social preparation stage to reduce dropouts. The program relies heavily on PDOs. Therefore, it is important to strengthen their capacity, provide adequate support, and revise PDO performance indicators which put pressures on their performance and wrongly incentives them to increase beneficiary enrollment, compromising program quality. The program needs to expand venues for program outreach, giving more flexibility to PDOs to deliver their messages. The business processes, the program needs to enhance the current and development new monitoring tools to assess the cost effectiveness and impact of each track, keep and scale up modalities that perform well, redesign modalities that perform poorly. Next is program design. Set realistic expectations and define program's goal to overcome the challenge and creating and or finding employment for a large group of uneducated people. The program should focus on providing skills and linking beneficiaries to other programs. Select Sustainable Livelihood Program participants through an objective procedure. Eligibility criteria should rely on and objective tools to classify participants into tracks, which is the employment track and micro-development track that fit their characteristic best. Instead of leaving the decision solely to the participants, Accordingly, PDOs must be advised not to encourage participants to go into one track over another. Program design involves local experts in implementing modalities of the micro-development track to increase the likelihood of success for micro-enterprises. Similar programs implanted in other countries emphasize regular coaching or transfer of knowledge to guide projects. Study further the added value of SLPs. The process to perform, constitute, and formalize a SLPs adds to the cost of beneficiary and may have a negative impact in opportunities for some participants. Moreover, evaluation findings demonstrate the SLPs may not be working as expected, since program beneficiaries tend to prefer to set up their individual enterprises even though they belong to the SLPs. Review the sustainability of the seed capital fund under the MD track or micro development. As mentioned before, repayment rates under the MD track are low in comparison with other microfinance modalities in the country. Given this finding, it is worth looking into the current repayment performance of beneficiary to assess the financial sustainability of the modalities as it is designed. Program design. Strengthen referral linkage to the programs. The SLP should look into developing effective collaboration with other national and local agencies with capacity to provide further guidance and resources for the entrepreneurial projects and job search. Integrate the Sustainable Livelihood Program with other livelihood and active labor market programs in the country. There are several livelihood programs across national agencies, among which the SLP is the larger one. Fragmentation means that each program has its own system and different database, which creates considerate inefficiency both from the perspective of the implementers and beneficiaries. Program designs include improved integration livelihood programs with social assistance programs. Safety net programs can complement and enhance a livelihood program. The guarantee of reliable support can also have psychosocial impact, inspiring confidence and promoting a beneficiary's ability to plan with a degree of certainty. And that's the Sustainable Livelihood Program. But before we end our discussion, we prepare one video for you to better understand what is Sustainable Livelihood Program.
Layunin ng Dswd na maiangat ang Pilipinas mula sa kahirapan sa pamamagitan ng Sustainable Livelihood Program. Sa programang ito, mga kabuhayang kayang makipagsabayan sa mga pang-araw-araw na gawain ang niyayari upang masigurado ang mas pangmatagalang benepisyo at kabuhayan ng bawat pamilya.
Una, kapos sa financial. Siyempre, budget ang baon ng mga bata.
Kung aasa lang po kami dun sa kita po ng aming mga asawa, hindi po yun kakasya, kulang na kulang.
Kahit nga sa pagwawalis sa kalsada, hindi mo akong mapapawalis dyan eh. Kasi ang katuwiran ko, bala sila sa basura nila.
Sa estado po ng buhay, lalo na ngayon, dahil marami namin mga pinagdaan ng mga pagsubok, hindi yun dahilan para huminto and kailangang mag-move on at maituloy yung buhay.
Beneficiary ako ng Pantawid, isang mapagpalang araw sa akin yun kasi alam kong kailangan ng mga anak ko yung tulong. Kaya nagpapasalamat ako sa Panginoon at yun nga, ang laking tulong nun. Ang laki po ng pagkakaiba kasi nagkaroon po ng kunting negosyo na
pinagkakakitaan. Ito yung sa tindahan, yung mga gulay, prutas, yan po yung mga mantika, bagoong, may gano'n. Nagluluto po kami ng almusal. Nagtitinda po kami ng lugaw, ng pansit. Kami po talaga nagluluto. Pero sa bahay po. Nadagdagan din yung puhunan sa tulong ng Dswd. Kahit pa paano, nabibili yung kanilang mga pangangailangan. Dagdag talaga pambaon sa pangangailangan ng mga bata. Pero naranasan ko kasi na hindi lang pera yung naitulong. Hindi mahalaga yung pera kahit nga ganun yung binibigay nila sa amin. Mas malaki yung naitulong na mga naitulong sa amin. Meron kaming mga training na ibinibigay sila sa amin. At yun yung malaking tulong talaga yung mga training na yun. Tinuturuan kami kung paano magnegosyo ng Dswd, kung paano magtipid, kung paano gamitin yung pera sa tamang pamamaraan. Doon din ako natuto na maging isang ina, maging asawa, maging mamamayan, nakisama, yung makisalamuha sa iba. Yung iba, sinasabihan din po namin na sumali sa mga ganitong programa kasi nga po naranasan namin na maging isang mabuting beneficiary ng Dswd, yung sa Pantawid. Ganda talaga, hindi mo makakalimutan yung naitulong nila at naituro na magagamit mo sa panghabang buhay mo talaga. Doon ko masasabi na ganito pala yung maging totoong tao.
So, the next one is the Kalahi Seed. Seeds, otherwise known as the Kapit Bisig, laban sa kahirapan, comprehensive and integrated delivery of social services. It is one of the poverty alleviation program of the Philippine government, which is being implemented by the Department of Social Welfare and Development, or the Dswd. And it uses the community-driven development, or the CDD approach, which is a globally recognized strategy for achieving service delivery, poverty reduction, and good governance outcome. So this Kalai Seeds is a kind of program which empowers people by helping them to achieve their basic needs in the communities through working together in the management of resources. So this Kalahi Seeds program provides funding and experts to guide this community in achieving those needs. So most common of these projects which they have identified as most needed in their areas are those roads, classrooms, water systems, and bridges. The Kalahi Seeds started in 2003. Its scale up was approved on 18 in January 2013 by the National Economic Development Authority, or NEDA board, which was also headed by the President Benigno Aquino Duterte. So the CDD helps communities in poor municipalities identify challenge around reducing poverty and make informed decisions on a range of local identified options for development, including how this is made and in what form. Also, it gives control of resources to address local poverty to community and builds the capacity of both state, including local government and civil society stakeholders to provide assistance and response to calls for support from poor communities as they have implement development initiatives. So the development objective of Kalay Seeds is to have barangays or communities of targeted municipalities become empowered to achieve improved access to services and to participate more in inclusive local planning, budgeting, and implementation. So the objectives of Kalay Seeds was clearly stated their purpose. So next, let's discuss the key features of Kalay Seeds.
Assistance for social preparation and capability building training for LGUs and communities. Support funding through community grants. The funds will be released directly to the community account. Transparency and accountability measures. Citizens other than public officials are involved in local planning and decision making. Community-chosen priorities are turned into projects, plans, and activities and feed into budgeting process, planning, and programming for LGUs and NGAs. Allowable community projects. KCNC DDP follows an open menu system. However, it has a set of disallowed activities specified on the negative list. Post-disaster response in covered municipalities declared as disaster affected. Accelerated Cycle 1. Portion of future earmark allocation will be advanced to Cycle 1. Activities eligible for funding will include shelter and resettlement. And lastly, can also adjust in KCNC DDP areas at any point a municipality is declared disaster affected.
So the local government units or LGUs that were identified as eligible for Kalay Seeds implementation will need to enroll with the Dswd regional field office where they are located. So these are the steps they need to follow to enroll. First, formally signify interest to participate in Kalay Seeds. Second, go through an assessment process to verify their readiness to implement CDD. And lastly, adequately comply with the conditions for participation in the Kalay Seeds. So the enrollment process will be undertaken by the Dswd field offices.
I will be discussing to you about the coverage of the Kapit Bisig Laban sa Kahirapan Comprehensive Integrated Delivery of Social Services Community-Driven Development Program. I will also discuss to you about the roles of the community in the Kalay Seeds, the roles of the municipal local government units, the function and responsibility of the social worker, and the Dswd Convergence strategy.
The Kalay Seeds National Community Driven Development Program or the KCNC-DDP has its project objective, which is to ensure that communities in targeted poor and disaster-affected municipalities are empowered to achieve improved access to services and to participate in more inclusive local planning, budgeting, implementation, and disaster risk reduction and management.
The Kalay Seeds National Community Driven Development Program or the KCN-DDP has three project components. These are the community grants, capacity building and implementation support or the CBAS, and project management and M&E.
Community grants is to fund social preparation and planning activities of communities and implementation of small-scale communities projects. LGUs and community beneficiaries contribute cash, labor, and materials. Community grants stands for cycles. Cycle 1 for Yolanda affected municipalities, which is equal to 19 months for social preparation and sub-project implementation. Cycle 1 for municipalities not affected by Yolanda, which is equal to 14 months for social preparation and sub-project implementation. succeeding cycles, which is equal to 12 months for social preparation and sub-project implementation. CBIS, or the Capacity Building and Implementation Support, is to assist barangays and LGUs facilitate the participation of communities in project activities, strengthening transparency and social inclusiveness. Project Management and M&E is to fund incremental Dswd field offices and central office operating cost, additional implementation oversight, and conduct monitoring and impact evaluation studies, baseline, midterm, and inline.
And now, let us go to the coverage of the Kalahari seeds in CDDP.
The Kalahari seeds in CDDP shall cover a total of 847 municipalities with a combined coverage of 19,647 barangays located in 58 provinces and 14 regions, covering approximately 5.3 million households.
These municipalities were selected using the following criteria.
4 municipalities. All 4th to 6th class municipalities except ARMM with poverty incidence above the national average of 26.5% based on the 2009 NSCB Small Areas Estimate. All 1st to 3rd class municipalities except ARMM with poverty incidence of 40% and above. All municipalities affected by Typhoon Yolanda in provinces already covered by NCDDP based on in the RRMC SITREP number 26, date November 18, 2013.
The program targets 847 municipalities, which are categorized as follows.
Yolanda affected and poor municipalities consisted of 377 municipalities. These municipalities are considered poor and also suffered damages during the Typhoon Yolanda. Given their unique situation, they were differentiated from other poor municipalities and from the other Yolanda affected areas to better address their needs. Poor municipalities not affected by Yolanda consisted of 293 municipalities. Based on the criteria, these are municipalities with high poverty incidence but were not devastated by Typhoon Yolanda.
And now, let us jump on the implementation structure.
The National Community-Driven Development Program implementation arrangement retain the overall structures and function of the Kalahari Seeds project. There are, however, changes and innovation adopted to ensure efficient implementation of the scaled-up operations under NCDDP.
The following are the adopted innovation for the efficient implementation of the program.
The concentration of key functions from the NPMO to the RPMO. The devolved function include the review and approval of fund releases for selected sub-projects based on type and cost thresholds. Conduct of training for ECPs, MCPs, and LGUs. Engagement with LGUs at appropriate levels. Fund management for regional lead support activities. Stronger synergy with the LGU development process and structures based on DILG policies and guidelines. Expanded membership of external stakeholders in all interagency structures. Increased role of DILG in program implementation with focus on LGU partnership. Systematic engagement with CSOs and PLGUs. Harmonized linkage with other national initiatives, example, BOB. Expanded NPMO and RPMO.
Those are the implementation arrangement of the overall structures. And now, I will be presenting to you some graph which shows a total project cost.
As what you can see in this graph, it is composed in billion Philippine peso. And it has its components. Component 1, which is the community grants, investment grants, and planning grants. Component 2, which is the technical assistance. Component 3, which is the project admin.
And now, let us look on the target and accomplishment of the National Community-Driven Development Program.
Total of 673 municipalities have enrolled under the KISI in CDDP. These enrolled areas are in various stages of social preparation, community planning, and sub-project implementation. Community participation as of June 2018. These are household participation rate in barangay assemblies is at 80%. Among barangay assembly attendees, 60% are women. Around 69% of Pantawid households attend the barangay assemblies. A total of 546,620 community volunteers has been mobilized and provided with various trainings, of which 334,538 or 61% were women. Community sub-projects funded as of September 2018. The program has funded 26,844 sub-projects. Of the total funded, 26,650 have been completed.
So those are all the coverage of the National Community Driven Development Program. And now, let us jump on the role of the community in the Calais.
As a community-driven development program, KC and CDDP ensures that communities are actively involved in process from start to end. Not only are they given direct access and control of funds for their community projects, they have also the opportunity to participate in making key development decisions for their communities. Communities have capable and responsible leaders. With Kalay seats in CDDP, the combination of traditional and new leadership functions in communities have been strengthened, improving the collective capacity of communities to address their community problems.
And now, let us jump on the role of the municipal local government units in the Calais seats.
The municipal local government units, or the MLGU, plays an important role in the project. Community-driven development requires a facilitating environment. The MLGU needs to provide a conducive environment that will enable residents to participate in the discussions regarding the development of their communities. The MLGU, through its mayor, will be responsible for mobilizing resources in order to help barangays fund the prioritized community projects. The MLGU, through the Sangguniang Bayan and the mayor, can also pass ordinances and policies in support of CDD to institutionalize this as local poverty alleviation strategy. The MLGU needs to assume a steering role in promoting active stakeholders' engagement in CDD. The mayor, who heads the Municipal Interagency Committee, or the MIAC, and the Municipal Development Council, or the MDC, can tap the structures to provide technical assistance, monitoring, and oversight to CDD implementation. The mayor can also link the communities to other agencies if needed. The MLGUs must also promote the integration of community development and action plans into the local development plans. Other roles of the MLGU in the project may be included in the Memorandum of Agreement.
And now, let us tackle about the function and responsibility of the social worker in the Dswd Convergence strategy.
Social worker plays a vital role in responding to the needs of the Filipinos during crisis. The Dswd social worker is ensuring to remain their mission to uplift the human well-being in the poor, vulnerable, and disadvantaged individuals and families. Municipal social workers directly have a relevant role in reducing social exclusion. These are the people who facilitate the participation of a client in improving own living quality in the longer term by offering social services and assistance most appropriate to clients' needs and resources. To protect and develop the disadvantaged sectors to become self-reliant and productive citizens in the community through the responsive delivery of social welfare services. Help relieve people's suffering, fight for social justice, and improve lives and communities. The social worker assigned in the Dswd also identify the basic needs of the needy, the disadvantaged and impoverished, and develop and implement appropriate measures to alleviate their problems and improve their living conditions. Now, for us to look on the summary of the Kapit Bisig Laban sa Kahirapan, Comprehensive and Integrated Delivery of Social Services, we will be watching this video.
And that's all. Thank you. I hope you learned something today, everyone, about the DSWD convergence strategies. Keep safe.